All right, let's get started. Hi, I'm Melissa Wendt. I'm the VP of Marketing over at Demand Driven Technologies. I wanted to thank everybody for joining us today. Very excited case study coming up. And just a few housekeeping rules. Everybody is muted on the line right now, but the chat box is open. So please, throughout the presentation, ask any questions you might have through the chat box. We'll have plenty of time for Q&A at the end of the case. I did want to introduce Fiat, DDI Master Instructor and CEO over at ABM Cloud, a partner of Demand Driven Technologies. He has been instrumental in implementing DDMRP across many industries in Eastern Europe and Mid-Asia. And I'd like to welcome him and thank him for coming in and spending some time on the case with how Yuko Lubricants improves supply chain flow with demand-driven technologies materials planning solution, Replenishment Plus. So thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Melissa. And hello, everyone. Again, my name is Sviatoslav, shortly Sviat, because the name is a bit complicated for other languages. So let's just make a short brief about the company. Feel free to ask questions and make some deep dives to fields that you're interested in. So as you see on the picture, the Yuko is the lubricants company. Basically, company has been like 30 plus years on the market. It's quite old for our standards. Why? Because 30 years ago we had the Soviet Union, so not much of the companies was there yet. So they have around 2K of the finished goods and around 400 only are buffered. So the main assortment actually is mainly make to order and being exported to more than 70 countries, including the US, Western Europe, and even Latin America. So basically almost all of the continents has been export from the Yuko. So quite big company. So what was the situation before demand driven? I put the quote from the head of the project manager. It was the chief financial officer. He was the head of our project. So basically, all problems were well known. I like actually his quote because I think you could find these problems really close to your own company. So the assortment is constantly changing. The product life cycles are being shortened, so constantly renew assortment. And this one of the key stuff that basically you have the plus low forecast accuracy. You get by model inventory distribution. So it's one of the parts and finished goods you have too little. Some of them you have too much. And basically, key issue for the company was to make as high as possible service level. They don't really care about the excess inventories, but the key pain was to make service level as high as possible. And the second problem obviously was the operational. When you have some out of stock, when you lose some order, you have a problem. And basically, supply chain people always can explain why it happened. They give you a list of the reasons: bad supplier, breakup, maybe some other issue, quality issue. So basically, they always have some like explanation. But nevertheless, inside the management understand they can make a higher service level. They just need to push it better to actually make it happen. So they were searching solution inside the management team for a long time, but then just couldn't find any reasonable solution. Also, they had an unreliable production schedule, not because the system is bad or because they cannot plan, but because a lot of outside factors and inside are forcing this schedule. So you need to have some overtime work to catch up because you don't want to lose the order, especially if you do it for the export. In our region, export is very important due to currency devaluation and fluctuations. The more your part is outside for the export, the more stable company is, because maybe if you have, like, for example, some economic crisis, I know the housing crisis, the .com in 2000, the housing crisis in 2008 in the US. It has been some crisis in the US, yeah, but for example, in our region, I would just name, for example, in the Ukraine, we had currency rate like 5 to 1, so 5 local car units for $1. Like, so exchange rate 5 to 1. In 2000, it dropped to 8 to 1. In 2008, when was the housing crisis, then it dropped like 27 to 1. So $1 is like 27 of the local currency. So it's really hit us. So you need to be aware not only some details but overall like economic situation. And again, it's difficult to decide how much product to stock and when, because for those companies, you not only put money on your warehouses, but and the space, you're also keeping your capacity, and so that wasn't like obvious. So before project, they was thinking stock is the money, so they weren't thinking on the other aspects of the stock. So that was like a short view of the situation before. But I want to give get details. How was but in general, how was the planning system? They had, as everyone else, the monthly planning schedule. They have the S&OP process, and they had MRP run to purchase raw materials and components. So basically, you have the plan, you know how much and when you need to order your materials. The issue came that your monthly plan need to be manually work around it in the spreadsheets daily. Why? This for make to order component came a bit earlier. This one came later. You need to switch. This machine stopped. You have 5 extra machines. Just switch others. And you always have this manual operations was basically done in a spreadsheets. And because those supplier obviously are not the most reliable suppliers in the world, and non-suppliers like 100% reliable, but again, they had the downtimes due to lack of the material. And obviously, when you have some time of downtimes, so maybe somewhere in the future, you need to make some overtime to catch up. And they had actually a lot of overtimes. It was one of the always also a pain. Yeah, not only because you need to pay people more and you're going out of your budget, but you're also making uncomfortable working conditions for the personnel. People getting tired, want to go home, but you ask them to work extra. Yeah, you will pay them, but still it makes some negative effects even for the families. So, and one more interesting thing, it's nice example of the self-imposed variability. Usually at the end of the month, warehouse and productions were overloaded. Why does it happen? It's actually quite, the answer was quite obvious because the sales. So the sales team has the KPIs. By the end of the month, they're supposed to sell some volume, some defined volume of the goods. Yeah, but usually people are not like pushing themselves hard at the beginning of the month and keep pushing themselves more because they want to get a higher salary, maybe some premium. So they work harder. So basically, despite that you have monthly volumes defined at the beginning of the month, you understand that the real actual volumes, like 60 to 70% of your key SKUs, you should push by the end of the month, because after the ramp up, when you sell more, there always goes the downturn. Yeah? If you sell more, your clients usually 1 week or two buying less because they just bought more. So this was like example of self-imposed variability. And obviously, if you wanna support the ramp up in sales, everyone knows it's artificial, but still, you need to have some goods if you want to sell them. So production knows there's the issue with the ramping up in sales, like I would say artificial seasonality inside of each month. So they need to support it. Yes, they need to build up a bit more by the end of the month, not just equally spread SKU inside the month. So it was one more interesting, but actually it's quite spread in our companies. So it's, I mean, in our region. Let me know if you have some kind of the issues on your market, maybe in US, Latin America, and Europe. If you have maybe some other interesting issues, or maybe some example of self-imposed variability, just please put in the chat box so we could make the discussion at the end of this webinar. So when we finally decide to go to the project goals was quite modest. I like the word modest because it was actually the most modest we ever had. For example, the head of the project, the company executive, Dmitry Vasilyev, and also the owner of the company said, what we actually want, we want the system to make it more visible for our sales manager and for our senior leadership. We just want to see what actually is happening. We cannot check all the spreadsheets of our buyers and planners. Let's make it more system in the one, more visual, more simple, and in one system. And of course, we need to increase our service levels. And again, we just want to make it clear at the beginning of the project that was the requirement from the client, from the Yuko. We don't need no inventory reduction. At the beginning, I was, because it was okay for me. It was the first and the only project when the client says we don't need no inventory reduction, and I just asked them, okay, why you don't need it? And he asked me, what should I, for example, you save me $1 million. What should I do with it? That's actually why very nice question. Okay, I never have higher service level and I can sell more, and I have one, for example, like $1 million less in inventory. What should I do with this $1 million? If you know the answer, please help me out. Write in the chat. For me, it actually been quite complicated. What was the first idea coming up? Just put in a bank. In the Ukraine, it's quite a risky idea. We had a lot of banks just popping up. I mean, just closing up, and I mean, you never know. So quite a risky idea. You can literally lose it. The second idea might be invest in some expansion of production. You don't need to expand production. If you first need to expand your sales, but you don't need to expand production. So and they don't want the rapid growth. They want steady, smooth growth. They want to understand how the business is growing. And the other idea might be invest in some other businesses. They said, we tried it a few times. We invest in a few startups, new ideas, new businesses, and almost always we fail. So because our owners of the company, the Yuko owners of the company, is quite elder people. They really know very good what they're doing. They really know good the industry, and they say we don't want to make the choices outside the industry we know. So in this industry we feel comfortable. Let's invest. Let's make our company better. Let's not do it outside. And the risk that we could make worse our service level, it just doesn't worth it. So we make it clear at the beginning we need no inventory reduction, or maybe you can justify why we have to do it. But so far we don't need it. Okay, next one. How we start the implementation process. It actually was also quite interesting. I understand that despite we agree that we're really starting the projects, I still saw some, I would say, like shade of totally, like people are not clearly trust the method and the system. So yeah, they decide this is probably good, but still there was some doubt, even after signing the contract and starting the work. So I decided to formalize the reference visit to Kormotech. So this is our client in the Ukraine. So we just like 200, 300 mile away, so not far. We just travel, and they went to the plant and saw how the system worked, that people are happy, it's quite easy to handle, they get real life results, they increase service level, increase production level, and simultaneously decrease the inventory levels. So everyone is happy, yeah. And he said, because this financial officer is really like conservative guy, he said it looks too good to be true. It's okay, but it looks too good to be true. But again, I really see that he really get more interested and decided to put more effort in the project. So it really helped out. So when we start, usually starting the project, the first key job, at least maybe in our market, is literally expanding the usage of the host ERP system. What do I mean by that? It's not that we do some modeling of the supply chain or maybe some advanced mathematics. No, at the beginning, you need to check that you basically all have at your own place all the key processes and the key data. If you do not have the right process working with the data, for example, you have actual SKU list, SKU names, SKU parameters, lead time, MOQ, etc., just technical data, you cannot start the project, because the system uses your data from your host ERP system as a fuel. If you have no fuel, the car would not drive. So basically, we work in the business processes and data just to make sure not just to clear them once and just launch up the system, because it also will not work. You need to build the system that maintains the right processes and the right data. So their plus could use the right data for the future, and the system would be sustainable in the future. Not that they will stop using the system in like 2-3 months or the methodology because it will not giving them results. This is probably the biggest piece of the work and the most hardest one. Why? Because you do not see the real result. You're cleaning the data, you're building the processes, working with the supply orders, demand orders, with the bill of material, but you get no results yet. So this is like the most difficult part of the work. But when we get the right data, we model the whole supply chain, we see what the benefits could system achieve and how the model works in the spreadsheets. The head of the projects and the project team, like the financial officer, IT director, and the head of purchasing really get interested in the methodology, not before the project as usual, but inside the project really get interested. And they took the demand-driven planner course, and they get even more excited. And also this motivation after the education and this knowledge that they have really makes some boost in our projects that really help us move much faster. And what we did, one also, it was not only just placing the buffers and making orders. One of the key stuff was basically how you can balance your workload, because okay, the amount of the machines that you have is fixed. The amount of the oil, the lubricants they can produce is also fixed, but the market is always fluctuating. So what you can do, you know that planning like just in time, just to make delivery of your components and just planning them by the day or just a few days before you need to ship them sometimes could be risky due to delays, poor quality, or some other issues. And this is one of the stuff where you're losing the service level. And despite of this unknown or the spike export orders, I mean make to order items, you still have your own goods, your brands that you are selling locally in the local market. So somehow you need to balance that. And basically the DDMRP methodology and the right placing the buffers and the identifying the right order cycle, I mean, which influence the green zone, the right order cycle, and the ability for the plant manager is ability to change this order cycle. For example, if I need to shortly increase a bit of my overall volumes that I'm pushing out of the plant, I can make short order cycle a bit bigger, that I'm doing the bigger batches. I'm doing less setups, that overall outcome of the plant is bigger, so I can produce more. But when I need more agile, more flexibility, and I need more faster reaction, and I have enough stock to support other orders, I can make this order cycle a bit shorter, not like 7, like 4 days, for example. So I'm gonna do more setups, but I'm gonna be more agile and more flexible, and I can easily adapt to the market. So this giving the easy demand, it's like when you're taking the shower, you know, you put in the water, it's hot, now it's turning right again, now it's a bit colder, Now you want a bit warmer, a bit colder. So it's not about like the precision, it's about the usability and the end result of the total system. When you balance the system, I'm gonna show it on the next slide. Strategic insight from senior leadership must be taken into account. What do I mean by that? The owners of the company said there is some key SKU that has to be stocked at least 6 months of sales, at least 6 months, sometimes even 9 or 10 months of inventory. You know, when you're calculating that, for example, that 30 days is more than enough, and they're saying you need to stock like 9 months of inventory, obviously it's a bit hard. You know, it's not about that all SKU, it's just a bunch of the key SKUs for the whole 4,000. It's just approximately I think it's around 50 SKU that you need to hold that much for the whole 4,000, but they are the key SKU, and we need to keep them really a lot. So I want to show you a chart or more detail. So this is the purple line is the client's current inventory. So this is the beginning when we basically put the data in the Air Plus. This is the screenshot from Replenishment Plus, and the black line is the target inventory. So what do I mean? If I want to cover all supply chain needs, so if I planning to have a high service level and no excess inventory, I basically need approximately here of approximately that amount of inventory. This is in the US dollars, for example, in the US dollars. But I currently have that much, and the gap was really incredible. Yeah, you see the huge gap. So when we did what the owner said, they give us this list SKU, doesn't matter what system or methodology says, we need to keep that much of the volume. And because in the system we have this cycle the adjustment factor, it's very easy to handle instruments. So we just quantify it the way the owners want it, not the head of purchasing logistics, the way the owner of the company saw it. And as you see, our target level just really skyrocketed, but we still saw some potential. Yeah, so we still could, despite of this investment, so they actually decided to invest money in the raw materials. That's again, they decided to invest money, not put on the bank account, not to make some startup, to invest money in some key raw materials, and that's really huge amount of money they invested here. So which means our target inventory pop up. So what was the key reason they did it? There was two. First one, the owner said we have two issues on that market. First one, reliability of suppliers. When your supplier could not ship the key components, the plant will literally stop, and all the people are working, the plant man, the production, the sales, everyone will literally stop. There will be nothing to do. So we want to be sure that our plant will not stop. We will do our work. And the second, as I mentioned at the beginning, currency fluctuation, political situation, and again, the price. Because the price for the key lubricants are literally tied to the price of the oil, which drops, grows up, and some key components could really increase in value with not direct correlation. For example, if the oil increase in 10%, this additive could increase in price like in 20%. So it's not like 10% in oil, 10% in this. So this was the two key points from the owner of the business. He says, I want to see it in the system. This is my additional investment. Honestly, at the beginning, and when we was working like for 4 months after the launching the project, when we check the results, what was actually basically the result? The first, honestly, I didn't clearly understand the vision of the owner because I do not have like 30 years experience deeply in that industry. So for me, I was looking at it as some excess stock that actually not helping me to reduce inventory, because I know that key case study of actually, if I help increase service level, if I help to grow sales, if I if I make the reliable production schedule, if I make the reliable production schedule, and if when I make smooth production, everything stable, no workarounds, no overtime, no downturns. If I make the plant stable, everyone's happy, and I could even decrease inventory, make some inventory reductions. That's, I think, considered a quite good case study. But because of this inventory reduction, we did only a 8% inventory reduction with 13% growth in sales. Okay, we didn't do growth in sales, only our job. Yeah, we help out in the growth of sales because we help increase the service level, but the also nice work of this marketing and the sales team, obviously. And one of the key stuff that actually was achieved, significant growth in sales. And again, when you focus on the right priorities, it turns out that you have extra capacity. Again, and you remember at the beginning of the case study, they had a lot of overtime work that was not only financial burden for the company, it was they need to pay extra money, but it was one of the key demotivators, like bad motivation for the people, because they cannot go home, they need to work extra because they need to fill this extra order. Now they don't use it. So I think it's actually also a very good result. But so that was like our case study. But when the time passed, and this is the open source information from average monthly Brent crude oil price from January to April for the first quarter, basically. Please look what happened with the price in US dollars per barrel. It's from the Statistica 21, so it's just the open source information. And looking at that graph, you see that basically something is really strange. Yeah, I mean, the price really fluctuates. And in just petroleum and refinery, I couldn't just find the graph for the all those additives that they're actually using. I just yeah, so it's just like close describing the situation. But when we go back, remember one of the stuff, reliability of supplier and price fluctuation. That was one of the key issues why the owners say we want to have extra capacity. And now please look at the chart from the replenishment plus. So again, I would make a short brief what does it mean. There is two graphs. So the first one is like blue line, green, yellow, and red. It means in which part of the buffer the net flow equation is. So basically, they still have around like 30% skew in the access, green zone, so it's optimal condition. So and around like 5 up to 3-5%. Again, it's not out of stock, it's in a risky zone. So 3-5% in the risky zone, but not in out of stock. So this shows the like overall view of the supply chain. It's all the finished goods, the semi components, semi-finished goods, and the raw materials, packaging. I mean, all in total. But there is two lines, on hand and target. On hand means how much inventory in total they have in value, for example, in US dollars. This is not the real value. I discounted it, but the ratio is the right. Yeah. So I cannot show the real value of the inventories, but it's just the ratio. And the black one is the target inventory. So as you see, the total cost was around, I would say 1.4. Let's name it $1 million, but it's not. It's just the ratio. Let's name it 1.2. Yeah, approximately 1.2 $1 million in inventory. So in one quarter for 21, the total value of the inventory doubled. Could you imagine this? Their business didn't grow 2 times more. They are not like selling like bigger or whatever. Just because of those prices fluctuation, it's just overall view. But for some key components, they grow a few times, they become a few times more expensive. But lucky for them, they had this investment. So only now, when the like 1 year passed, I really understand that this owners, they knew more than even analyzing data for 2 or 3 years from the supply chain of view could give you some insights. There is some points specific only for their industry, specifically for their market, that only the owners of the company would know. But what we can do, we can give them the platform that and the owner and the supply chain professional and the planner, the buyer, they can all see the same screen. They can all get aligned, and that really make the supply chain transparent, and the decision is being made visual for the all part of the supply chain. And this is the wrap-up slide. I have the interview. If you want to see the whole version of the interview, please go to the Demand-Driven Institute, the case studies. There's the whole interview with Dmitry Vasilyev. He is the Chief Financial Officer of the Yuko. And I was just asking to him a few questions about the project, the implementation, and the results, the challenges, etc. But I just want to point out the few key statements that he actually that he said. I mean, what he did say that we clean origin stables both in our minds and the company in each level. Before it was like wandering in the fog. So also, what he mean by that? He said we don't really need some additional information or some advanced mathematics. We had all the information we have. We just misinterpreted it. We need to find the right, like the common ground here to use this information and to get to make it more visual, more simple, and to make the right judgments. Yeah. So for them, it was at the beginning. It was really close to understand, complicated at the beginning to understand what finished goods to stock and how much, and what batch is optimal, what inventory level is optimal. But basically, after the project, they really understand that you don't need to look at the each SKU level, but the whole, but the SKU is the whole. So it doesn't matter if the one SKU is optimal. It's not the linear system that this SKU is optimal, this SKU has optimal batch, and everyone in total has optimal batch. It's better to have the whole system as optimal, even despite the one SKU could not be an optimal if you count it by the LQ equation compared to the LQ equation. We make order in our warehouses. That actually was quite key stuff, because when you have some SKU at the warehouses and you do not have the clear policy which should be stocked, what should not be stocked, so now it's much easier and more order and more transparent what actually they are keeping. And my favorite one, disorderly accumulation of information does not lead to success, because each event has the meaning only in the context of the events. In your language, it's all about flow. So yes, we come to that quote. Actually, it's all about flow, because he said, because when we have at the beginning, before the project, when we had some supply chain disruption, what we did, we just ask 5 whys. Why didn't we get the supply chain ship yesterday? Because we didn't finish production yesterday. What we didn't finish production yesterday? Because our barrel wasn't ready yesterday. Why our barrel wasn't ready yesterday? Because our supplier failed us, or we use it for the other component, or maybe this could be other answers. He said, yes, it's also a nice tool, yeah, but it's much easier to look not only like separate effects, but look at the events as the whole. So analyze the flow, not the separate, discrete events in the chain of the events. So that was the short overview. How we begin the case study, how they actually choose to start. what was the situation before. Actually, situation was like quite common. The one stuff that was not common, they didn't want to reduce inventory, and at the beginning for me it was kind of strange, but now we know why it is not. At least now I'm convinced that I was right. They didn't lower the inventories. When the value of inventories increase on the market few times and you have this cheap material, why not? I mean, storing them is obviously much cheaper than buying them few times more expensive. Yep. Maybe if you have some questions on the chat, because I cannot see. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, there was one question that came in around, can you tell us why your strategy is not made to stock?
Okay, I will tell you, because when you are having 2000 of unique SKU, so it means that what actually means that when you have produce some finished good, you can pack them up to 20 and materials. Those could be small package, bigger package, small barrel, huge barrel, and so you have the whole variety. And it's not only ends there, because this barrel with the oil could be export. For example, the Ukraine, which has some government, it's not export, it's local, but it has some government regulations. It could be export to Belarus, Uzbekistan, Poland, Germany, the US. The US has its own government regulations, so you need to have a different packaging, different type, even the different pallets. So if you get the order, for example, sometimes even from the Iran, they want to ship 2 containers of oil to Iran. They need to fulfill the requirements that has the Iran government for that oil. So you cannot store this. All the same SKUs that you actually have, you need to change the packaging. You cannot ship it. And it's the one thing, you cannot ship the SKU for one country to another, but at the same time, you need to produce them really a lot. For example, you have like 500 units of barrels to cover all demand for the local market, and then you have to export 3,000 for the other with the different packaging, with different titles for the other country. So you need to produce them. But what you can do, if you obviously this huge spike order will make extra load for your production, so you need to produce them. But what you can do, you can place the buffers for the most frequently selling selling SKU that you know that you will sell them. Not in total volumes, they're gonna ship 2 containers for Iran once, and I'm probably will not gonna ship them sometimes never, sometimes maybe in 3 years, not 2, maybe 4 containers. So there is no 0 point of stocking them, because this is huge spike and could not happen anywhere else. But when you have SKUs that are frequently selling, obviously you can stock those. So you basically stocking not the money, but you stocking the plant capacity. So when you catch up this spike order, you will not build those. You will sell them, but you will not build. You will build those that is the spike. So for the plant point of view, nothing changed. So they are producing the same total volumes daily as usual. But for the system, they fulfill the order. Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
One of the other questions was, how can I know if my company is a good fit for DDMRP?
So I actually like the Carol quotes about it. If you have no variability, if you have no uncertainty, and your clients buying today and you selling today exactly what you were selling yesterday, so if you have no supply chain variability, uncertainty, everything is perfectly stable, probably you don't need a DMRP. You just do whatever you've done before. But if you do not know the exact numbers, if you of the sales, and if you have your supply is not 100 reliable, do not have 100% write the forecast. Yeah. So DDMRP is all about managing the complex and volatile systems. So if your market is volatile, the more volatile and uncertain it is, the better results you get, and the more complex environment you have. So, for example, just type what kind of the industry do you working for, because we have experience working with the pet food, tea company, some advanced electronics. So from the simple FMCG company to more complex environments. So again, it fits almost all companies.
Perfect. Well, I know it's about 9:42, and I know we scheduled till 9:45. Those are all the questions. Let me just see. I see a couple more things coming in. More so just comments. So we really appreciate everybody's time. Thank you so much, Spiat, for going through the journey. We will circulate the recording to everybody probably by end of week, so be on the lookout for that for sure. And if there are any questions, feel free to reach out to either ABM Cloud or Demand Driven Technologies. So thank you so much for everyone's time.